Let's get started tonight on what will be ultimately our 64th lesson of this wonderful journey through the Gospel of John. That's an incredible number, I know. I think when I first started, I kind of joked that it would take us a while. And I didn't mean it would really take us this long. And then now it's, we're not halfway out of the book. So I'm not under any pretensions that we're going to do it any faster now. But at the same time, I still, every week, I know you're not going to believe this, but every week when I put these together, at least where I think we're going to go, I feel like I'm moving too fast. I literally do. I go into the text and I lay it out and I think, here's where I want to go tonight, and I lay screens out to try to keep me in parameters, because without them, I don't know, sometimes we get through one verse. And then I get to the end and think, you went too fast, look what you missed. And then I'll go back the next week, and that week while I'm preparing mentally, I'm looking back over going, wait, we didn't talk about that, and we should have went there. And so, I really feel like I know this is ridiculous, but I really feel like we're going really fast. And I mean, we could be going slower on this. There are so many moments in these stories where I feel like, man, there's so much depth right there that if you just wanted to mine for a while and just stay there, you could. And I really don't sometimes, just because I don't want to bore anyone and I don't want to get lost in it. You kind of get down the rabbit hole and just chase the end. So I try to move forward. With all of that said, I'm back tonight on that shepherd idea and that thought where we've been for weeks of I'm not going to reteach the good shepherd or the true shepherd, but you can't deal with John 10 without this metaphor and this motif of shepherd and what Jesus is trying to do and what he's laying out in front of his audience, looking at people who are supposed to be shepherds, Pharisees. They're supposed to be leaders. They're supposed to be taking care of stuff. Not just stuff, but people. People is their assignment. Ministry can never forget that people is the assignment. And it's not growing, it's not getting big, it's not making money, it's not getting in the spotlight, it's not doing stuff, it's people. And if they become a hindrance and a distraction, then it's time to find another line of work. No matter your ministry, if people start to be a distraction to doing ministry, you're a Pharisee. And to me, that's the modern definition of it. When people who are supposed to be the whole point become a part of the problem on the way to climbing that ladder. Jesus comes in and just throws a spiritual grenade in the middle of that, and the fallout puts him on the cross, really. He's the victim of that grenade tossing, because they're not going to lay their position down. He's going to have to lay his own. In fact, that's where we'll end up tonight, is him going, you know why I'm a good shepherd? Because I will die for you. I will fall on this grenade. I will bust this party up by giving my own life. The only way to knock this system out is to give you a superior system. And that's been on my heart this week too, because I just edited the improvement from last month, our monthly meeting, which by the way will be the last Sunday of this month. Forgot to talk about that, but the last Sunday of November we'll have our monthly meeting at 5. And I jumped out of sequential order to air the improvement this week, just for other reasons I won't go into. But I've been on that all week, that thought of Jesus came and improved it. He took what was faulty and wasn't working because your conscience wasn't clean. You're offering all these lambs and your conscience isn't clean. So he comes in and he does this. This is why I use the screen, so that we get going. But before I read any text, I wanted to lay that out, this thought that don't think of the shepherd. Don't think of the shepherd as some weak, emaciated, gentle individual who, why does Jesus use the shepherd and sheep? And we always go, well, because sheep are defenseless and basically ignorant. And so that's us. So the real story is that you're sheep. And so what do sheep have? Shepherds. So what's Jesus? A shepherd. Wrong way of looking at it. And if you're looking at it that way, it's just ignorance on our part. The shepherd in the old world was not, we messed this up because we saw little David. Okay? Go little David fighting big Goliath. Little shrimpy David's just a kid. And he's out there. Why does dad put him in the field to guard sheep? Because he can't do anything else, because he's just a little kid. And so you put him out. We messed that up because we had a sort of an idyllic idea of shepherd rather than what a shepherd was. A shepherd's your most courageous, your bravest, and your most accurate fighter you have, because who else puts themselves between useless sheep and a lion and a bear and a wolf? You put a man out there who was not only brave, but who could kill the lion. Because what good does it do to have a shepherd that just gets out of the way? That was Jesus' point. What's the hireling do? He just gets out of the way. Here comes the wolf. He goes, oh, forget this. I didn't sign up for this. I didn't sign up to lay something down. I signed up to be in this position. A shepherd, David's not at a disadvantage when he fights Goliath. And we've all preached it that way. He said David's, he's not got a chance because Goliath's a warrior. David's a slinger. He swings. He shoots from a distance. He doesn't shoot from close up. He doesn't use a sword. He doesn't use a shield. He doesn't punch people in the face. He doesn't do hand-to-hand combat. He's an archer. He's a distance fighter. He uses slingshot. What happens with a slingshot? You shoot from a long way off. The farther the better. But if you're accurate, then that's all you need. You don't need to get in close. In fact, why does Goliath run at David? It's to cut the distance, because Goliath looks at David and realizes, oh no, I brought a knife to a gunfight. Literally, Goliath brought a knife to a gunfight. David's using the gun of the old world, a slingshot. And Goliath has a sword and a spear and goes, how am I going to beat him? You've got to cut the distance. So the Bible tells us that Goliath runs towards David. And David isn't scared. He comes at him with covenant. Why am I saying all this? Because it's the greatest warrior, not the weakest warrior. When Jesus presents himself as the shepherd, he's the greatest warrior, not some meek little petting the sheep and, it's because you guys are dumb and you can't fight. That's why I call myself a shepherd. No, he calls himself a shepherd because I'm the one that can defeat the biggest wolf, the roughest bear, the most vicious lion. I've got you. I can defeat them. You don't have to worry about it. My rod, my staff, they comfort you. That's the point of that. I'll stand in between you and that. That's why when David kills Goliath, Saul comes onto the battlefield, David's holding Goliath's head in his hands. This is one of those dramatic moments in Samuel. He's literally holding it in his hands. And Saul comes in and goes, whose kid are you? Because there's heritage. Because you're a shepherd. Your dad's a smart man. He put you in the field because you're a warrior. Who's your father? He tells him. Saul puts him in charge of his army. You don't do that to 15-year-old kids just petting sheep. So put David out there. He can't do anything else. No, he put him in charge of his army because he found the greatest warrior we have. Your shepherd is a good shepherd. And so that's the point of calling himself a good shepherd. That's the point that we're reaching this climax tonight in John 10, because we really are going to try to turn the corner tonight and move into another portion of the text. So let's read a couple verses. John chapter 10. Folding the flock will make sense here in a little bit. That's our title. 14:15. I am the good shepherd. That ought to mean something to you now, after a month of talking about shepherds and sheep. I know my sheep. I'm known by my own. As the Father knows me, even so I know the Father, and I lay my life down for the sheep. Take a real look at 15, because Jesus interjects yet another metaphor. He's wearing you out with them. Doors, gates, folds, sheep, thieves, hirelings, robbers. And then he throws in fathers and sons, just out of nowhere. Now, it's not new to the book, but it's new to the argument. We've not been introduced to the father and son argument in John 10. It is almost as if he's moving outside of the shepherd argument. He's really not. What he's doing is trying to establish a new way of thinking versus an old way of thinking. Remember who was in the conversation? Pharisees, who've had this encounter with the man born blind, and they kicked him out of the synagogue, and mom and dad didn't have anything to do with him. We got bad parental relationship. We got a bad religious relationship. You got Jesus interjecting himself going, you guys were supposed to be taking care of this kid. You're the Pharisees. You're bad shepherds. You're thieves. You're hirelings. You're robbers. I'm a good shepherd. I'm the door. He keeps layering, sort of multi-layering the metaphors, multi-layering the motifs to try to help out. So he grabs the father motif. It's the same. It's the problem the young man had because mom and dad kick him out. Remember, they disown him. And so now Jesus reintroduces the father to try to help with an underlying issue. So next screen. At that time, Jesus answered and said, Matthew 11, I want to add something here. I want to add to John. At that time, Jesus answered and said, I thank you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, that you have hidden these things from the wise and the prudent and have revealed them to babes. Even so, Father, for it seemed good in your sight. Now, went to Matthew 11 for a reason. I don't know if you're familiar with chapters, verses. You know what's coming. If you are, then you know Matthew 11, 28, 29, 30. Coming to me, all you that labor and are heavy laden. That's coming up. We're going to read that. But I didn't want to start there. I want to show you what leads into that. When Jesus talks in John 10 about being the Father, scratch that. that's confusing enough that he's talking about his Father. Jesus doesn't talk about being the Father. Jesus talks about his Father, okay? Father and Son. Add to that the thought from Matthew 11 where Jesus answered and said, I thank you, Father, that you've hidden these things from wise and prudent, revealed them to babes, so it seemed good in your sight. 27. All things have been delivered to me by my Father. We add this to our John 10 thought. No one knows the Son except the Father, nor does anyone know the Father except the Son, and the one to whom the Son wills to reveal to him. Did you give me the text between... Yeah. Let's do this. Put those together. Jesus emphasized the particular closeness of a father and son as opposed to the chasm between a master and a servant. I'm going to come back to that. He has presented himself as a door, as a gateway, as a shepherd into knowing God as Father. His next statement will make it clear how this works. Don't go to the next statement. I want to concentrate on that first thought for a moment. The reason why I sat and worked on this in my mind today is that until this moment in the John 10 argument, there's no fathers and sons. It's just shepherds and sheep and gates and thieves and robbers and harlots. All sort of outdoor, take care of sheep motifs. Then all of a sudden, Jesus drops fathers and sons in. And he does it for a reason. It's what the ideal shepherd, it's how the ideal shepherd treats his sheep. He takes care of them as if they're his family. And the Pharisees that he's talking to have failed to do that. They're not taking care of Israel as if it's their family. They're taking care as if it's a master and a slave. So Jesus sees a real chasm between the thought of a father and a son and a master and a slave. Israel, for the most part, has been in a master-slave relationship with God. God tells us what to do, we do it. We fail, God punishes. We succeed, God blesses. When we raise our kids that way, we end up with struggles. We know it, and we slide into it anyway. If you guys do good, you get blessed. If you do bad, you get cursed. And we wouldn't say it that way. We don't say to our kids, you do good, you get blessed. You do bad, you get cursed. But we sort of slide back into the law pretty easily a lot of times with how we respond to them. Because I think in a lot of ways we do it the way we've seen it done in religion. We treat it the way we feel like God treats us. So as long as we see a master-servant relationship between God and us, it's how we treat our kids, it's how we expect to be treated in the world. As we start to transition, jump that gap between master-slave and father-son, we start to treat our own kids in parental relationship rather than master-slave relationship. And the parental relationship looks a lot more like the prodigal son, where he comes back to the father, and the father... How many of us, if the younger kid comes home, it's going to be hard to resist going, okay, look, I'm going to take you back, but this, and this is going to happen from now on, right? We're not going to break this rule. We're not going to do this anymore. We're not going to have this happen again. And I think the point Jesus is making is to not slide back into that master-servant relationship, but to really emphasize father-son, to really emphasize who he is. So in all the motifs, we know God is Father. When I put his next statement, makes clear how this works. I show you the last part of Matthew 11. Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. I'm gentle and lowly in heart. You'll find rest for your souls. My yoke is easy, my burden is light. Probably in the last few years, this has gained in popularity because of the message of the finished work and grace, has really brought Matthew 11, 28 to 30 to life for people, because what they've started to do is go, hey, I think what Jesus was trying to do is tell us that we ought to take a real rest. But did you notice the context? The context was, my Father blesses me, I listen to my Father loves me. What does that look like? That's the verse in front of this. You're never going to come to him and take a rest. You're never going to learn of him that he's meek and lowly. You're never going to learn how to work with him until you see him as Father. That was the point. And the reason why this really hasn't penetrated everyone's heart, because it's great to quote, but it still hasn't penetrated everyone's heart. And the reason why it hasn't is because we haven't yet really transitioned to seeing him as Father. We still see him as Master. We still see him as Lord instead of seeing him as Dad. I don't mean you don't have to, if it's uncomfortable for you to call him Dad or think of him as Father, you don't have to do that. Or say that out loud or whatever. But start to transition the way your relationship is formed and start to realize that what Jesus was doing was trying to show the Pharisees, you failed to be a father to people who need a father. So I'm not just going to be a shepherd, I'm going to be a dad. It's how my Father has treated me. It's what my Father has said to me. So John 10:16. Other sheep I have which are not of this fold. It's important the father motif happens here, because by putting a father motif, then we can move outside of Israel. We can bring in something else. It's not just a master-slave, because you can have multiple children. Other sheep I have which are not of this fold, them also I must bring, and they will hear my voice, and there will be one flock and one shepherd. I've heard this verse quoted to support alien life on other planets, that what Jesus is saying is, hey, I got people out there that you don't know about, got to bring them in. And look, I hope that's right. I hope there's life on other planets, just because that would be pretty awesome. But I'm not giving you any spiritual insight out of John 10:16 that there's life on other planets, because that's not what to me, based on where the New Testament goes with this, and based on what we had in the Old Testament getting to this isn't what Jesus is talking about. There are religions of the world, offshoots of the faith, offshoots of Christianity, or tributaries to Christianity, who quote this verse, that the reason they exist is because Jesus had sheep from another fold or another flock. So there's multiple ways to see this. I want to try to take a look at it the way I think the Old Testament sets it up and the way the New Testament interprets it, because it's an important verse. In fact, it's more important than it looks on the surface. John 10:16 is a transition point that leads us into being here on a Tuesday night. And if not for John 10:16, I'm not saying we wouldn't be here if this one verse didn't exist in the Bible, but the heartbeat behind this verse is why we are confident that we have a Father. Because Jesus declares to Israel, you don't know everybody that belongs to Dad. It's not master-slave anymore. Remember, we've had father-son. You don't know all of Dad's kids. You don't know, and by making it father-son, he's elevating Israel as well. Because if it's just master-slave, and you go, well, you don't know all of Dad's servants. The servants can fight, they can bicker, can step on one another. But sons are related. So by introducing father-son and then going, but they're not all here yet, that's saying you've got brothers and sisters out there you don't know about. You've got family members you haven't yet met. And that's a toughie for Israel, because they've been alone in this. God's been their God. Israel has the one God, the true God. And for Jesus to say, I have other sheep which I have that aren't of this fold, I got to bring them, they're going to hear my voice, they're going to be one flock, one shepherd. That means there's something else out there. How much do they believe in that? Well, I don't know, but watch how the Old Testament leads up to this. The bringing in of the Gentiles was part of the Messianic work. It's just part of it. It's not the entire thing, but it's an undeniable part. You think about the Jews wanting a Messiah, and you go, well, they wanted somebody to overthrow Rome. True, because they think the land's theirs, and Rome's camped out on it. So you got to get rid of the guy camped out on it. It's like a Jericho situation, and Rome's the Jericho. So I need Jericho gone. I need Rome out of the way. But there's more, because the bringing in of the Gentiles was also part of it, because the conscience of man has called out to God from the beginning. That's Paul's first chapter of Romans. He went in Romans 1, listen, man knows there's a God because he sees him in creation. He knows there's something bigger than himself. He can't figure it all out. Science comes along, and I think sometimes in Christianity we're a little too critical. Well, no, we're way too critical of science, but I think we're a little too critical unnecessarily, because we almost feel like if science brings out some ancient fact that somehow it's a fight against the Bible. No. It's not a fight against God or his creative power at all. It only sheds more light on the complexity of your Creator. It doesn't, if someone questions the Creator, I heard someone say one time, a miracle is defined as something that happens that is inexplicable by science. That would be a miracle, right? Every scientist admits that if you rewind to the Big Bang, which, by the way, I don't have a problem with the Big Bang. God spoke and there was light. That sounds like a pretty big bang to me. I don't have a problem with that. You say it started with a Big Bang? Fine. God spoke, boom. Let there be light. What happens? There's light. That's a big enough bang. That's as big a bang as you can get. I mean, it doesn't get any bigger than God speaking. But science will tell you, you rewind all the way to the Big Bang, there's that moment, that nanosecond before the Big Bang, that's inexplicable. Like, how did it happen? And they go, well, we don't know. That's the definition of a miracle. It's when something happens that science can't explain. And so I think we've all had that in our heart. So there's a lot of things we can't explain. So are they miracles? I don't know. But we put faith in the fact that we believe God has the answer to those things. My point in that being that man's been looking for God from the beginning, so God didn't exclude the Gentiles and go, I'm only going to take Jews. So no, God's heart's always been for everyone. Israel's in the fold, but Jesus promised to create one flock. Now watch the difference here. By the way, your King James Version doesn't do very well on John 10 at all. There's a lot of verses that King James doesn't do well on, but people miss this for centuries because King James was all they stuck with. King James translates them both as flock. I have multiple, I have many that are not of this flock, but I'm going to go get them and they know my name and will be one flock. That's how the King James translates it. I have many who are not of this flock, but they hear my voice, they know my name. I'm going to get them, we're going to be one flock. They're two different words in the Greek. They are not both flock. I don't know why the King James Version did that. Your New King James cleaned it up. Most of your translations clean it up. They use flock and fold. So what's the difference? Israel's in the fold. Jesus says, I have many who are not of this fold. But they know my voice. I'm going to go get them, and we shall be one flock. So watch the difference. One is fenced. This is literally the definition of the fold. It's a squared off, fenced in area. One is fenced. The other, a flock, is a composite whole. It's taking parts, folds, and making one big flock. They're two different Greek words because Jesus isn't talking about the same thing. He doesn't say, I have some that are not of this flock, but I'm going to go get them and we're going to make them part of this flock. That is not what he says. He says, I have some that are not part of the fold. They're not the fenced-in people that you are. But I'm going to go get them. And we're going to make one flock. And what does a flock lack? The fence. The moment the fence is gone, we don't have a fold anymore. We have a big flock. So if I have a fold of sheep and a fold of sheep, this is where all the sheep are, and I tear down the fence and they all run together, now I don't have two folds of sheep. I have one flock of. That's Jesus' point. I have many sheep who don't belong in the fold, but I'm going to go get them. They're going to respond to my voice, and we're going to be one big flock. I'm in the process of tearing down the fence. I'm the way in to understanding who you are, but this isn't the end. The end is not that I'm just the way for the fold. That'd be Israel. I want to be bigger than the fold. I want to be the whole flock. So I want to knock down the fence, and I want us to all be one composite whole. So the arrival of Gentiles drops those parameters. And I use the word exclusivity because what happened is that Israel had an exclusive corner on the market with God. I mean, God has a temple, and where is it? It's in Jerusalem. And if you want to get a hold of God, where are you going to get a hold of God? Not at your house. No. Temple. Not on your own. Priest. You want access to God? Great. How are you going to do that? Not the Holy Spirit. You're going to go into the holy place. And you're going to get to do that once a year. But you're only going to get to do that if you're the high priest. Parameters. Exclusivity. Fold. Jesus comes and goes, I'm the way into this. But I'm not done. I don't like it that we have a fold. What if we had a flock? What if we didn't have this exclusive corner on the market? What if it wasn't just here? Now, lest you think, I don't know if the rest of the New Testament agrees. I really think that's Paul's whole message. I mean, Paul fights against this whole, he fights against the exclusivity of the gospel. But you remember Paul's fighting about the temple. You get to Galatians 4, where Paul goes, Sarah and Hagar are examples of two covenants. And Hagar is an old covenant, and Sarah is a new covenant. And Hagar has kids through the flesh, and Sarah has kids through promise. And Paul goes, Hagar's like Jerusalem, which is in bondage with her children. And Sarah is like a heavenly Jerusalem. What's Paul mean? Well, one, an act of the flesh, is here presently on the earth. It has an exclusive corner on the market. But God's promised family, God's flock, is bigger than a natural city in a natural state. It's bigger than fences. It's going to break all those parameters down. It's going to get rid of the exclusivity of salvation. Paul would even say to the Romans, salvation is of the Jews. What did he mean? The salvation that's been presented is an exclusive message. There's no other way to get saved but Israel until Jesus. Because Jesus becomes the fulfillment of all of those promises. So, the exclusivity had been created by the fold, and I use Judaism because Judaism is the name of the religion. So the exclusivity of the fold is that Israel has been the one who, well, they're the way in. Now, let me tell you a story. I've been working on Corinthians a lot in the DDP, and been actually for quite some time, verse by verse. And it's a roller coaster, Corinthians. I've had a good time. There's been other times when I thought, man, this is so pointed to a context and a generation that it's tough. I mean, 10th chapter, women, keep your head covered. It's to the glory of a woman to have her head, don't have your head shorn. Men, it's to your glory not to have your head covered. You know, back and forth. Paul's doing some interesting stuff. He's liberating women while throwing some shade on Judaism at the same time. You know, the whole men, why would you pray with your head covered? It's to your glory not to cover your head. That was an anti-Jewish statement because Jewish men covered their head when they prayed. They do to this day. And Paul said, why would you cover your head? You know, it's kind of he's throwing, it's an odd back and forth in 1 Corinthians 10 because, and he gets to the end of it, you wade through all of this, and you get to the end, he goes, but, you know, if anybody's contentious, we have no such customs in the churches of God. And you go, well, then why did we spend half a chapter on it? We have no such. So there's a lot of that in Corinthians. I didn't really see how much of that there was till I started working verse by verse through Corinthians. It doesn't take away from the glory of the book, and it adds to the intrigue, a little bit of the mystery of the book. When you get to the root of that whole Corinthian church, you find it in Acts 18, where Paul goes to Corinth. He's come fresh off the heels of his Athens meeting, the statue to the unknown God. He goes down the road, he ends up in Corinth, and he starts in the synagogue in Acts 18 because he's preaching to Jews. Paul had this real thing about, we all call Paul the minister to the Gentiles. Paul, early in his ministry, felt like he could preach to anybody. You know, he even says that in Corinthians. He goes, I'm all things to all men. To the Jews, I'm a Jew. To the Gentiles, I'm a Gentile. And that's not necessarily brag-worthy. That's not easy to do. That's not your call, by the way. God doesn't call you to be all things to all men. That was Paul confessing. I try to be everything to everybody. So please don't try to be everything to everybody. Okay? Not even Jesus tried to be everything to everybody. Jesus is who he is. And sometimes you have to come to who he is. He doesn't come just to you. That's a rabbit. I'll let him run. So when Paul tries, every town he goes in, he starts in the synagogue. Because he keeps trying to preach to Jews. And he realizes eventually it's not working out. The message it's not getting to do what I want it to do. I want to pick that up in Corinth, where Paul finally gets that revelation. I want you to watch this conversation he has with God. When they opposed him and blasphemed, this is in the synagogue, by the way, with Jews. They opposed him and they blasphemed. He shook his garments and he said to them, your blood be upon your own heads. I'm clean. From now on, I'll go to the Gentiles. He was supposed to do that anyway, by the way. This is no big moment of high honor. This is Paul finally just going, shucks, I'll just do what God told me to do. Go to the Gentiles and preach to them. 7. And he departed from there, and he entered the house of a certain man named Justus, one who worshiped God, whose house was next door to the synagogue. He didn't go very far, did he? So, I'm done with you, Jews, and no more preaching in the synagogue. So he goes next door and knocks. So, at least I'm close. Then Crispus, the ruler of the synagogue, believed on the Lord with all his household. Many of the Corinthians, hearing, believed, and were baptized. 9. Now the Lord spoke to Paul in the night by a vision. All right, if you're getting Corinthians saved, you're getting Gentiles saved. That's the code there, okay? Corinth is full of Gentiles. We've got some Jews getting saved, but mostly Gentiles. So the Lord speaks to Paul and says, do not be afraid, but speak. Do not keep silent. I did all of this for this point made in the 10th verse that God says. For I am with you, and no one will attack you to hurt you. For I have many people in this city. Let me ask you this. The synagogue just kicked him out. The Jewish contingency in Corinth does not want him. So he washes his hands of them and he goes, forget it. All right, I'm going to go preach to the Gentiles. And that night, God shows up in a vision and goes, you're on the right track. Keep preaching. Don't stop. I have a lot of people in this city. Who are the people God has in this city? Gentiles. That's the point of the story. That's what's beautiful about this Acts 18 moment. Paul has a revelation. He doesn't just have a vision. He has a revelation. Guys, this shapes Paul. This shapes Paul as much as any single encounter he ever has with the Lord. Because what he hears Jesus say is, hey, you know, today when you got tired of getting kicked out of the synagogues and Jews don't want anything to do with you, you're on the right track. Keep preaching. I have a lot of people in this city. It doesn't mean I have a lot of believers. It means I have a lot of people that are out there that I want. They're mine. So go get them. And they're all Gentiles. And why is this so big for Paul? Because Paul becomes the voice of the New Testament that says, stop with the division. Stop with separating between a Jew and a Gentile. Realize that God came for something bigger than this. It's Paul that does this. Paul understands this. And I think he understood this. Next screen. Unity, not uniformity, is promised in Christ. I'll come back to that. There are many folds throughout the world, various ages, various languages, various cultures. You could throw any various you want in with a comma behind it right there. There's all kinds of folds throughout time. There's only one flock. And that was Paul's message. I mean, it looks a little bit like this. There's a lot of folds in Christianity. You know? And there's the Baptist fold, the Pentecostal fold, the non-denominational fold, and the TV ministry fold, and the storefront church fold, and the living room church fold, and the I don't go to church fold, and the Catholic fold, and the whatever fold, and the cowboy church fold, and there's only one flock. And what's the identifier of the flock? I think we do have unity. We do have more unity than we realize, because the identifying unity of the flock is Jesus is the Christ. You're going to go to every fold and ask that. And they're going to go, yeah, we agree with that. Oh, you think Jesus is the Christ? That we've got. That must be what makes us a flock. All the other stuff just makes us part of our fold. And your fold builds fences, because it's a lot easier to tell who belongs to you if you put up a fence. That's how we develop man-made doctrines. And believe me, we got a lot of them. And all of us that have man-made doctrines are pretty sure we got them from the Lord. Okay? We're pretty sure that church constitution was laid out by the Holy Spirit. That He's the one that told us this is the truth, that you're the real church. We're just a fold. We're not the flock. We're part of the flock, but we're just part of the flock. The fold is varied and multicolored and speaks different languages and has different ideas, and some of the folds think one thing's okay and some of the folds think the other, but the flock agrees Jesus is the Christ. I think we have more unity than that even. I mean, I think we believe that Jesus is the Christ and that He died on a cross and that He resurrected. And I don't know anybody that calls himself a Christian that doesn't believe in the resurrection, or at least in some form of the resurrection. What we don't have is uniformity. I've had that question asked to me a lot from people in the circles of grace. Would say things like, man, you know, I know this is truth. This grace stuff is truth. Jesus said that we were supposed to come into the unity of the faith. So doesn't that mean that we should all end up believing and agreeing on the same thing? And my statement to that is absolutely not, because Jesus doesn't promise us uniformity of thought. He promises us unity of faith. Who saved you? Jesus. There you go. You and I agree on that. Now here's where we may disagree on rapture, tongues, Bible translations, water baptism, communion, marriage, child rearing, how you ought to dress in the church, what real worship is. We may disagree on all of it. We're never going to be uniform on all that stuff. It's just not going to happen because we can't be. You like stuff I don't like, and I'm not going to change for you. And that's the same way you're going to be towards me. But we do have unity in that we're part of the flock. We're part of the family. There's a different metaphor. We're part of, and I just did some DDPs on this today from 1 Corinthians. We're part of the body. Paul loves that illustration where he goes, one's a foot and one's an ear, but they're both part of the same body. Well, what's that mean? It means the foot and the ear is not the same thing. Your foot will do fine if your ear gets cut off. Your foot will still work. In fact, your foot doesn't even know your ear's gone. It works the same way without the ear. And if you lose your foot, your ear still works. It's not as if your foot falls off and your ear stops working. It's because I'm not going to work without the foot. We're members, but we're one body. But the foot won't work if you cut it off the body. And that was Paul's point, and I think it was where Jesus was going, is we're one flock, we're different folds. We don't work when we separate from the flock. We're useless, and we're cultish. And that happens. And you dive down into, I don't know how far I want to go with this, but I got there. And it was really like a vacuum. It starts to suck you in, and it starts to take your life away. It starts to take your spiritual life away. Because here's what it sounds like. And I can't even believe I ever got here. But here's what it sounds like. Well, I'm not even sure if all those people are saved. Yeah, that church down the road? Yeah. I don't even think they're saved. Yeah, but they believe in Jesus. Yeah, but they believe in another gospel. They believe a false version of Jesus. You know what? Not only am I saying we're not uniform, we're not even unified. There's no unity. They're not as saved as I am. They're not as saved as we are. They don't have as much truth as we do. This is not the message Jesus comes preaching in John 10. And it's not the message Paul comes preaching in the New Covenant. There's a unity of the faith that makes us a body. Where we've been confused is we think in a utopian church society, we'll think the same way, act the same way, dress the same way, like the same music, believe in the same kind of preaching. No, it doesn't happen. That's not unity, that's uniformity. That will kill you. Uniformity will kill you. If you have to wait until because here's what happens, your lingo starts to change into, we want the pure gospel. What's pure mean? No imperfections. What's imperfections? Things that don't look like me. Things that don't think like me. Things that don't believe like I believe. What do we want to do with them? Get rid of them. We don't need any of those people around. Pretty soon we go from a flock to a fold. And, it's a frightening place to be. Hopefully we recognize it. There are many folds, many languages, many ages, many cultures throughout the world. But there's only one flock. Let me show you how Paul breaks this down. Ephesians 2. And I'll head to the end. This is Paul. I love this, to the church at Ephesus. Watch systematic theology that brings Jew and Gentile together. This is a beautiful passage of Scripture from verses 11 to 18. Therefore, remember that you, once Gentiles in the flesh, you were called uncircumcision by the people called circumcision, made in the flesh by hands. In other words, the people that called you uncircumcised were the people who were circumcised. Who are the people who were circumcised? Jews. What did they call you? Uncircumcised. What were you really? You were Gentiles. So we've got two kinds of people here. Gentiles are uncircumcised people. Jewish people are circumcised people. Paul just went the long way around and described this is our setup. All right? Verse 12. That at that time you were without Christ. At what time? When you were uncircumcised Gentiles. You're still uncircumcised Gentiles. That's your physical state. But at that time, there was something else happening. You were without Christ. You were an alien from the commonwealth of Israel. That means you weren't in our fold. right? You're outside the fold. You're an alien to our fold. Just means you're not a citizen. Not a citizen of our fold. You're a stranger from the covenant of promise. The covenant of promise is not even the Mosaic. The Mosaic is not the covenant of promise. The Mosaic is the covenant of performance. The covenant of promise is where God says to Abraham, if you'll believe, I'll give it all to you. What do I have to do? Only believe. Believing requires you to leave Dad's house and go get it. There is an action behind your faith in the covenant of promise, but you don't earn the promise. And so Paul says, Gentiles, you were without Christ, you were aliens from Israel, you were strangers from the covenant of promise, and here was where it left you. No hope without God in the world. This is the worst possible place that you can end up. No hope, which means you got nothing to believe for, nothing to wait for. Why? Because you don't have a promise. So what are you doing? You're just wandering around. That's why you end up in sin and vice and foolishness and addiction, because you don't have anything to live for anyway. You're without hope. You're without God in the world. Terrible spot. Period. End of the sentence. This is the description of the Gentile world outside of Judaism without Christ. Verse 13. But now, there's your great transition. Paul's going to bring us into New Covenant. But now in Christ Jesus, you who were once far off, how were you far off? You were out of the fold, you're strangers, aliens, no promise, no hope, without God in the world, uncircumcised Gentiles. Look at all those adjectives. But now you're in Christ, you were far off, you've been brought near. How? By the blood of Christ. Not even by your own blood. This is big, because you didn't get circumcised. Circumcision would be your own blood. It would be your own self-sacrifice. Forget self-sacrifice. Let's point to His sacrifice. By the blood of Jesus, you've been brought near. And then it gets, all that's just really descriptive. I mean, you could stop there and go, this was all of us before we met Jesus. Now we've been brought near by the blood of Jesus. But Paul doesn't stop there. He goes a little bit farther, and he does something that's pretty path-breaking. He does something with Moses, with the law. He himself is the Jesus of 13. Jesus is our peace. Our peace. This is the first hour. O-U-R. It's the first flock. You had two folds. Gentiles, uncircumcised, strangers, no promise, aliens, far off, no hope, without God. Circumcised, called Jews. That's their whole description. Circumcised, covenants of promise. They got it all. Paul puts an hour and goes, in Christ, He's our peace, both groups, who made both of them into one, so there's no longer two different, and broke down the middle wall of separation. Now, before you go any farther, just think for a second, what in the world was the middle wall of separation? What separated the Jew from the Gentile? And your first thought is probably, well, it's the top of the story. How did Paul start the description? You who were uncircumcised were called such by people who were called circumcised. So you might say the wall of partition was circumcision. And you wouldn't be far off if you were thinking only in the natural, but Paul's not thinking only in the natural. He's thinking in the spirit. There's a comma here. 15. Jesus abolished in His flesh the enmity. Whatever the enmity is the separation between Jews and Gentiles. It's what makes you a Gentile and you a Jew. Jesus abolished that enmity, the law of commandments contained in ordinances. There's Moses. There's the Mosaic. The Abrahamic promise we've already talked about. Gentiles, you couldn't have that. You didn't even have an Abrahamic promise. But you had something separating you from Judaism. What separated you? What made you Gentiles and what made them Jewish? Not just circumcision. The law of commandments contained in ordinances so He could create in Himself one new man out of two men. Who are the two? We don't have to go over that again. Thus making peace. So what separated the Jew and the Gentile? The law of commandments contained in His ordinances. We're going to do more with that. Watch where Paul goes, 16. And that He might reconcile them both to God. Not just Gentiles get reconciled to God, but even Judaism gets reconciled to God. Why does Judaism need reconciled to God? Because the law messed them up in 1,500 different ways we don't even have time for. And most of Romans deals with it, and most of Hebrews deals with it. And Paul, my gosh, if you've never read Corinthians, that'll do a number on you, what the law will do to people. And so Paul says they both needed reconciled to God because they were both separated. And he did it in one body through the cross, putting to death the enmity. What's the enmity? Anyone can say it. The law. He put to death what? The law. What separated the Jew from the Gentile? The law. Jews have it, Gentiles don't. You're not allowed in the fold. You can't get in our fold. Not allowed in our fold. Why are you not allowed in our fold? Because you're an alien and you don't have the law and you don't keep the law. And God didn't give you the law. What if we could get rid of the law as a separator? Well, that'd be like tearing the fence down from the fold, wouldn't it? We can't do that. You can't tear the fence down. If you tear the fence down, how are you going to know the difference between the Jew and the Gentile? I mean, what's going to be the separator then between the Jew and the Gentile? So Jesus puts to death the enmity. 17. And he came and preached peace to you who were far off and to those who were near. Jesus came preaching peace to both the Gentile and to the Jew. And then watch what that message of peace looks like. 18. That through him we both have access by one Holy Spirit to the what? This is why in John 10:16 when Jesus says, I have a flock that's not part of this fold. I'm going to bring you both together and make you one flock. Right before he says that, he introduces the Father-Son motif. Because the end result of tearing the fence down and bringing all the folds together to make one flock is not so you get a big church. It's so you get more people to realize that they have a dad that loves them. That peace is accessible when you realize you have a father. So what Paul takes is Jesus' message that I have sheep that you guys don't know about. And Paul says, you know who those sheep were? The Corinthians. The people that were strangers and aliens and didn't have. Now they have. And that there's no separation such as the law of Moses in between those two things. And there's no reason now for us to not be one flock and one family. This is why we end up here every week. One of the most damnable things we've heard in the church is that God has a separate covenant. Paul gave his life saying, no, he destroyed the enmity. He destroyed the wall. There's no two different covenants. There's no you get this and then they get this. No, there's one man in the earth and he comes in through Christ. Let's get through this passage in John 10. Therefore my Father, 17, I'm going to go through 21. Therefore my Father loves me because I lay down my life that I may take it again. Here's self-sacrifice. I lay it down. 18, no one takes it from me. I lay it down of myself. God doesn't kill Jesus on the cross. If your theology says God killed Jesus because God was going to kill you, but then Jesus stepped in, you have a God that's pretty mad at people and then is willing to kill his own son so that you don't die. I guess if that's the baby step that brings you into realizing God's not mad, that's okay. It's a good place to start. That was actually the baby step that helped me come into grace because I always had God mad. So then my first step into the message of grace was God was really super mad at man because he hates sin, but Jesus stepped in, God killed him instead. Now, I would never preach that now because I don't think God killed Jesus. Jesus says, I lay my life down. It's a sacrifice. But it walked me in because my big fear was God's mad at me and I should die. Oh, Jesus died for me. Now I realize more about what the substitute looks like, but if that helps to get you in, fine. But I don't think God kills Jesus. Jesus lays his life down. No one takes it from me. I lay it down of myself. I have power to lay it down. I have power to take it again. This command I've received from my Father. So Jesus goes into the cross with his eyes wide open, and he realizes what he's doing is laying his life down. 19. Therefore, there was a division even among the Jews because of these things. Well, I bet there was. How could there not be? 20. Many of them said he has a demon and he's mad. They always go to this. You know, we've done this before in this study. The minute they disagree with him, he has a demon. And you know what? Not a lot has changed among religious people to this day. To go like, don't listen to that. That guy's a heathen. I think he's influenced of the devil. Everyone that you disagree with is influenced of the devil. That ought to tell you something. That maybe they're not. It's like every person you've ever met that disagrees with you, they got a demon. Why do you listen to him? 21. Others said, these are not the words of one who has a demon. Can a demon open the eyes of the blind? And their consensus was a demon couldn't, because they never had. And so here comes Jesus doing something that's never been done before. And that's one of the reasons he opens the eyes of the blind, because they didn't have a man born blind having his eyes open. By the way, this is another verse that points back to chapter 9, the man born blind. When we transition next week, we will find the Bible's only mention of Hanukkah, as Jesus will head into the Feast of Dedication, another fancy phrase for Hanukkah. And it's the New Testament's only reference to that holiday, which overlaps our Christmas event, but it's a Jewish holiday. We'll talk a little bit about it. It's not of real import for you to understand in order to see a fulfillment in Christ, but it's an interesting story. We'll start there in 22, and we'll move down through some more shepherd and sheep stuff that Jesus has in mind. Again, every week, I think, man, we move too fast. There's so much to say there. But I hope we've hit the highlights in a way that help as we work our way through this. The fold and the flock, what I meant, of course, with that title is, well, I think it's pretty evident. Jesus comes speaking to a fold and said, it's not going to be a fold for long. We've got a whole flock. We're going to make one big flock out of this. We're going to take a bunch of different people that you don't know, and we're going to make one family. And we're going to do it through Jesus. And I think Paul's message was that he did. And that's what we're seeing today around the world. Let's pray. Father, I thank you for tonight, and I thank you for the word, and I thank you for helping us to minister it. I hope that we've made Jesus look good, that we've shined a spotlight on your Son, and in having done so, brought glory to the gospel. We are a little fold here on Tuesday night, and we have a little bit bigger fold that considers themselves part of this family, but we're not the flock. We're not the whole thing. We're a finger on the body, or a toe. We're just, the more we can understand that, Father, I think the more we'll open our hearts of compassion to people and realize the unity, not uniformity, but the unity that comes in knowing that you have many children in this city, as you told Paul. What a revelation that was. And I pray we have it as well. That everywhere we go, we realize he has somebody here. That's part of the flock. That's my brother or my sister. We thank you for this. In Jesus' name, amen.